Okay, this is my SRA 433 presentation, implementation of our risk assessment tool. How our tool works is it has two sets of questions broken into a vulnerability and a severity set. Each set consists of 9 questions. Then using the basic equation vulnerability times severity, we arrive at risk, which we use from 2 computed averages of scales of 1 to 5 for each set of questions, and when we get these averages together, that's the respective vulnerability and severity scores. Our tool is in the context of a pyramid scheme vulnerability. Just a little bit about pyramid schemes. They rely on a pyramid-shaped business model with very few members at the top who are making money off of everybody below them, who must buy inventory directly from them, and that is how the people above them make money. And then the people who buy the inventory are then charged with moving the inventory lower down the ranks all the way to the bottom of the period, and they in turn make their money off of it. And the people at the very bottom are charged to actually disseminating the product into the open market. Pyramid schemes are definitely in the area, they're shades of gray, and they are often used as a way to sidestep other illegal business models in the U.S. Here is a picture of the basic layout. You can see we have the vulnerability and severity sets of questions here. The questions are pertinent to what we arrived at as certain propensities that can make you have a higher or lower risk to buying into a pyramid scheme, and hence wasting your money and your time. These are some scores that were entered in over here in the input table. So then these are all the inputs from the person taking the assessment, and over here we have the averages for the two, and then the red box at the bottom here is that is the actual risk assessment, or the risk rating that we derived with the formula. Okay, so subject 1. My initial assessment is that they were fairly gullible, and if they were walked through a certain set of ideas and presented with a conclusion at the end, they would agree with said conclusion, just to agree with it, and there would be a distinct lack of healthy skepticism and questions that would delve deeper and expose some imminent flaws in the pyramid scheme model. Their actual assessment was only a risk rating of 7, which according to our matrix is it denotes that they need to monitor their activity, but they are not at an immediate risk. It's definitely shades of gray in terms of activities. They exhibit both risk taking and risk avoidance behaviors. And comparison wise, these results were inconclusive because they do not line up very well with my initial assessment, and I know the subject well. So I tried to delve into why maybe this assessment and the subject and the results didn't sync up the way I wanted them to. I arrived at they just might not have understood the assessment and what they needed to do with it. And maybe there needs to be different questions or a different layout, a different rating system maybe to make it more user-friendly to derive more accurate results. And here we have subject 1's actual numbers with their risk rating up top, and included a matrix to interpret their score. Okay, so subject 2. Initial assessment is that they know the value of $1 and a little hesitant to spend it. They really don't have a mind for business but they also fall victim to groupthink and trending fads, and their thoughts are very easily influenced by people whose opinions they respect. The actual assessment put them at a 10 on the rating matrix. It prompts a need for action. It's not the worst rating there is. It's definitely somewhere in the middle, erring a little more on the sides of risk-taking behavior than risk avoidance. And comparison, I thought that these results corroborated each other pretty well, because there were sets of cautions from my initial assessment and the actual assessment. From the initial assessment, I noted that they really didn't enjoy spending money on too many things outside of what they're used to spending money on, and just a lot of new things, new opportunities to spend money are initially shot down. So that was a caution that was reduced the risk rating that they earned. And the actual assessment put them somewhat in the middle of the matrix, which exhibits a capacity for risk avoidance and risk-taking behavior. So I think because of this essentially cheapness, it helped knock their rating down and reduce their overall propensity for risk towards falling victim to a pyramid scheme. And here we have their values, again with the computations. Subject 3. Initial assessment, they are budget conscious with a very strong set of morals and values that are not easily persuaded or corrupted otherwise. I think that this definitely helps beat down their risk rating score in one facet of avoiding a pyramid scheme. There's also no entrepreneurial business sense. They've been in the service industry for a long time, and the mindset of fair work for fair pay is definitely set. You earn what you work for, and the idea of buying into what is essentially a get-rich-quick scheme, otherwise known as pyramid scheme, is not a very moral way of doing business, and they realize that they have there's definitely caveats embedded within the model. The assessment tool earned or recorded a rating of 8. It's a threshold score that again shows a capacity for risk-taking and risk avoidance behaviors, erring on the side slightly more to the side of risk avoidance. Comparison-wise, they're very difficult to put into a firm category, because the closer you get to the middle of the matrix, they're a more volatile subject, and there's less independent variables that have been thoroughly evaluated to derive results from that you can moderately reliably rely on. So it's difficult to quantify how much of an actual risk. It's more of a per case basis. There's a history of pointless purchases that are made with money that have no real value after they're bought, other than some kind of personal enjoyment that they derive from it. So there's factors that could take it in either way that make the subject 3 hard to firmly place in severely at risk for a pyramid scheme, or they're safe enough away from it where it really won't affect them. And here is subject 3's rating. A couple things that I learned in this study: personal evaluations of certain aspects of the subject. They contain biases. Obviously, they're evaluating themselves. They're going to have a propensity to think more towards just their positive traits, or it could be the exact opposite, their negative traits, and it really could not represent a balanced and let alone an objective representation of their actual risk-taking behaviors. We tried to work as best with this as we could when we were formulating these questions. It's a big issue to ask the right questions, because if you formulate questions certain ways, they lend themselves to certain answers. So we tried to make the questions as neutral as possible, excluding negative and positive connotations. We just needed a very cut and dry answer and rating that would lend itself to easy evaluating. And another thing that I learned through this project is that a lot of people don't consider their risks for certain scenarios until they happen. There's the mindset that, oh, that won't ever happen to me, until it does, and then from then on, that will always be a specific point of reference that individuals will go to in their mind in certain questionable situations, because they know that they're at a specific propensity for said risk since it has happened once already. And that concludes my risk assessment tool presentation for SRA 433. I would like to thank Professor McGill and the class for a great semester.